Many years ago, in the beautiful city of Kaduna, there lived a young girl named Suiya. She was a striking beauty, with a sharp mind that set her apart from her peers. Born as the fourth of 15 children, her mother, Amina, was the fourth wife of Chief Danjuma, a man of immense wealth and influence. Despite growing up in a household where luxury was abundant, Suiya was not happy. From a young age, she despised the reality of living in a polygamous home. She watched as her mother and stepmothers schemed against each other, their rivalry often erupting into heated quarrels. Even among the children, there was a constant struggle to win their father's affection, each one desperate to be his favorite. Witnessing these endless conflicts, Suiya made a solemn vow to herself: she would marry for love, and love alone. She would find a man who would cherish only her, a man who would never take another wife. Whenever she confided in her mother about her dreams of a monogamous marriage, Amina would shake her head and sigh. "My dear, you had better be careful with such thoughts. You are a Muslim, and you will marry a Muslim man. Our religion allows a man to take more than one wife if he so desires. Do not build castles in the air. Even if a man promises you that he will not take another wife, you must not believe him. It is your duty to prepare your mind for reality. Otherwise, you will suffer heartbreak for no reason," Amina would caution her sternly. But Suiya was determined. "You will see, Mama. When I get married, my husband will have no need for another woman. I will be his only wife. I will bring so much value to the table that he will never think of marrying anyone else," she replied proudly. Her mother only chuckled, shaking her head. "Haba, Suiya. Listen to me so that you don't set yourself up for disappointment. The world does not work the way you think it does." But Suiya refused to listen. A few months later, she graduated from secondary school with flying colors, and shortly after, she gained admission into a prestigious university to study medicine. Determined to become a woman of great value, she threw herself into her studies, excelling in every course. She believed that if she became successful and independent, her future husband would hold her in such high regard that he would never feel the need for another wife. As she progressed in university, suitors began to approach her. Mostly older men, friends of her father, men in their 50s and 60s who already had multiple wives. They offered wealth and status, eager to make her their 5th, 6th, or even 7th wife. But Suiya turned them all down without hesitation. She knew exactly what she wanted: a devoted Muslim man who would love her and only her for the rest of his life. Years passed, and Suiya finally graduated from the university with distinction. Her heart swelled with pride, and her mother beamed with joy. Wasting no time, she moved to Abuja, where she secured a position at one of the most prestigious hospitals in the city. Her career flourished, and she quickly climbed the ranks. With every paycheck, she made wise investments, acquiring properties and securing her financial future. In just 3 years, she had become a self-made multimillionaire. She was living the dream she had envisioned for herself: strong, independent, and successful. Then, just as she had always believed would happen, she met him, Ahmed. Ahmed was a strikingly handsome man. Tall, well-groomed, always dressed impeccably, and with a scent that lingered in the air long after he left. The moment Suiya laid eyes on him, she felt a spark. And when he walked up to her with confidence and asked for her number, she handed it to him without hesitation. From that day forward, they spoke every night for hours, their conversations flowing effortlessly. They spent more and more time together, and soon their bond deepened. Then, one evening, at a beautiful restaurant, Ahmed looked into her eyes and asked her to be his girlfriend. Suiya, overwhelmed with happiness, accepted immediately. Ahmed was a farmer. He raised livestock and cultivated crops. Though he was not as wealthy as Suiya, she did not care. He was independent, hard-working, and, most importantly, he loved her. He showered her with affection, often surprising her with flowers and gifts at the hospital. They spent weekends dancing, dining, and cooking together. Ahmed was everything she had ever wanted. One evening, as they lounged in his home, Ahmed turned to her, his eyes full of emotion. "Suiya, I love you more than anything. I know I may not be at your financial level, but I love you deeply, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I just don't know if you feel the same way, or if you would ever consider being my wife," he said softly. Suiya smiled but grew serious. "Ahmed, I love you too. But I have one fear. We are both Muslims, and in our faith, a man is allowed to take more than one wife. I do not want to be in a polygamous marriage. Before I consider marrying you, I need to know, do you ever see yourself taking a second wife? She asked, searching his face. Ahmed reached for her hands and gazed into her eyes. Suiya, I swear on my life, I will never love another woman the way I love you. My father had 3 wives, but I want something different. If you agree to marry me, I promise you, you will be my only wife until the day I die, he assured her with a warm smile. Tears welled up in Suiya's eyes as she embraced him. At that moment, she knew she had found her forever. A few months later, they were married in a grand ceremony, surrounded by family and friends. They settled into one of Suiya's properties and built a happy life together. But their bliss was short-lived. One fateful day, Ahmed's farm caught fire, reducing everything to ashes. Devastated, he broke down in tears. Suiya did everything she could to console him. She took on the responsibility of running the household, providing for both of them without complaint. When months passed and Ahmed struggled to regain his footing, she gave him money to start a new business. But instead of using it wisely, Ahmed indulged in luxuries, expensive clothes, gold jewelry, a brand new car. With what little remained, he rented an office space, hired a secretary, and claimed to be a business consultant. Though disappointed, Suiya chose to ignore his irresponsibility. She convinced herself that as long as she continued to provide for him, he would remain loyal. So, she handed him her ATM cards, allowing him to spend as he pleased. Years passed, but despite their love, one thing remained missing: children. 4 years, then 5, and still, she remained childless. Ahmed was supportive, always reassuring her that Allah would bless them in due time. But then, one afternoon, as she sat in their living room, the front door swung open. Her mother-in-law walked in, accompanied by Ahmed. Beside them stood a young, beautiful, 17-year-old girl, pregnant. Suiya's heart pounded. "What is happening here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother-in-law smirked. "Have you lost your manners? Is this how you welcome your mother-in-law into her son's home?" Suiya's world spun as realization sank in. Her worst fear had come true. In the beautiful and bustling city of Kaduna, a young girl named Suiya was born into a life of privilege and wealth. She was the 4th of 15 children, her mother, Amina, being the 4th of 6 wives married to Chief Danjuma, a man of great affluence. Though Suiya lacked nothing in material wealth, attending the best schools and living in comfort, her heart was heavy with discontent. She despised the polygamous nature of her family, the endless rivalry between her mother and her stepmothers, and the constant struggle among her siblings to win their father's favor. From a young age, Suiya made a firm decision. She would not walk the same path as her mother. She would marry for love, and love alone. She longed for a man who would cherish her and only her, a man who would never take another wife. Each time she expressed this wish to her mother, Amina would shake her head knowingly. "My dear, do not build castles in the air," Amina would say. "You are a Muslim, and you will marry a Muslim man. Our faith permits a man to take multiple wives if he so wishes. Even if your husband swears to love only you, you must prepare your heart for the worst. Otherwise, you will only bring yourself unnecessary sorrow." But Suiya was resolute. "You'll see, Mama. When I marry, I will be my husband's only wife. I will be so valuable to him that he will never need another woman," she declared confidently. Amina sighed, looking at her daughter with a mix of admiration and pity. "Haba, Suiya, listen to your mother. Do not let your youthful dreams lead you into disappointment. The world does not always bend to our desires." Undeterred, Suiya threw herself into her studies. She excelled academically, determined to build a life of her own. After graduating from secondary school with flying colors, she gained admission to study medicine at the university. She worked hard, always reminding herself that she was shaping her future, preparing herself to be a woman of value, a woman her future husband would treasure above all else. During her university years, many suitors sought her hand in marriage. Most were wealthy older men, friends of her father, eager to make her their 5th, 6th, or even 7th wife. But Suiya turned them all down. She knew exactly what she wanted, a devoted Muslim man who would love her, and only her, for the rest of his life. Years passed, and Suiya graduated with distinction. She moved to Abuja, where she secured a prestigious job at a renowned hospital. She worked tirelessly, investing her earnings wisely. Within 2 years, she had purchased 2 properties and made several lucrative investments. By the time she was just 3 years out of university, she had become a multi-millionaire. She was proud of the life she was building, and she knew it was only a matter of time before she met the man destined to be hers. And then, just as she had envisioned, Ahmed walked into her life. Ahmed was a strikingly handsome man, tall, well-groomed, and always dressed to perfection. He carried himself with confidence and had a smile that could melt the hardest of hearts. The first time Suiya laid eyes on him, she felt an instant attraction. When he approached her and asked for her number, she gave it to him without hesitation. From that day, they spoke on the phone for hours, their connection deepening with each conversation. They began spending more time together, and before long, Ahmed asked her to be his girlfriend. Suiya, overjoyed, accepted immediately. Ahmed was a farmer, raising livestock and cultivating crops. Though he did not possess the same financial success as Suiya, she did not care. He was hard-working, independent, and, most importantly, he loved her. Ahmed was the kind of man who surprised her with flowers and gifts, took her on romantic dates, and even helped her cook. He made her laugh, made her feel cherished. He was everything she had ever wanted. One evening, as they sat together in his home, Ahmed turned to her with a serious expression. "Suiya, I love you more than words can express. I know I may not be as wealthy as you, but I want to spend the rest of my life with you. But I don't know if you feel the same way. If I asked you to marry me, would you say yes?" Suiya smiled, but there was hesitation in her eyes. "Ahmed, I love you too. But before I can give you an answer, I need to know something. You know how I feel about polygamy. I do not want to be in a marriage where my husband takes another wife. I know our religion allows it, but it is not the life I want for myself. So tell me honestly, do you ever see yourself marrying another woman?" Ahmed reached for her hands, his gaze unwavering. "Suiya, my heart belongs to you and only you. My father had 3 wives, but I have no desire to follow in his footsteps. If you agree to marry me, I promise you, there will never be another woman. You will be my one and only." Tears welled in Suiya's eyes. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him, and when he knelt before her with a ring, she said yes. Their wedding was grand, a celebration of love and commitment. They settled into one of Suiya's properties, living blissfully as husband and wife. But happiness can be fleeting. One day, disaster struck. Ahmed's farm caught fire, destroying all his livestock and crops. He was devastated, and though Suiya comforted him, he struggled to recover from the loss. Seeing his pain, she took on the full financial responsibility of their household. She provided for both of them without complaint, even giving Ahmed money to start a new business. But instead of investing wisely, Ahmed squandered the money on luxury items, clothes, gold, and even a new car. With what little remained, he rented an office and hired a secretary, claiming to be a business consultant. Suiya saw through his actions but chose not to confront him, hoping that by continuing to support him, he would remain devoted to her. Years passed, and despite their love, Suiya remained childless. Ahmed was supportive, always reassuring her that Allah would bless them in due time. But after 5 years, their childlessness became a source of tension. Then, one fateful day, Suiya's world shattered. Ahmed walked into their home, accompanied by his mother and a young, pregnant girl, his new wife. Suiya's heart stopped. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. His mother, Halima, scoffed. "This is your co-wife. Since you cannot give my son children, she will." Rage and betrayal coursed through Suiya's veins. Ahmed, the man who had sworn to love only her, stood before her with another woman. "I am the man of this house," Ahmed declared. "I answer to no one. Accept it." For days, Suiya locked herself in her room, crying. But when she emerged, she was no longer the same woman. She stopped buying food for the household, blocked Ahmed's access to her bank accounts, and focused solely on her work. Soon, hunger crept into the home. Ahmed, now dependent on Suiya's wealth, found himself begging friends for money to feed his new wife. The illusion of his status crumbled. His second wife, realizing his true financial state, grew disillusioned. Then, one day, Suiya made her final move. She gathered all of Ahmed's and his new wife's belongings and threw them out of her house. Ahmed was stunned. "Suiya, please, don't do this. Where will I go? What about my baby?" But Suiya remained unmoved. "Find your own way," she said coldly. Ahmed left with nothing. His new wife and mother soon turned against him, and he was buried in debt. He regretted everything: the betrayal, the lies, the greed. Meanwhile, Suiya thrived. She continued her work, saving lives, and prayed that one day she would find true love again.